okay, how in the world? Well, I was just over in Zambia and met this doctor. That's a life-changing thing in itself. I've been able to travel all over Africa. Walk me through some of your career highlights. How did you get to Zambia? And then from Zambia, how did you end up getting to Growability? Welcome to the Growability Podcast, where we help business leaders become better leaders and business coaches become better coaches. I'm your host today, Joshua McLeod, because Bernie Anderson is somewhere in Southeast Asia. This is season 3 of the podcast, where we are teaching coaches how to maximize the Growability toolkits with their clients. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Jonathan Sims. Jonathan Sims has been coaching with Growability for more than a year. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm so glad to be here.
One of the benefits of being a member of Growability is the ability to meet with some amazing people. And we've been planning out this podcast season. We've been talking through how great would it be to just have different coaches that are using the Growability model, the Growability toolkit, to be on as guests. This is kind of a new thing for the Growability podcast, is to talk to coaches. So Jonathan, you're the guinea pig. This is the first run. Right. So tell us a bit about your background, your journey. Like, how did you first get interested in coaching?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I first got interested in coaching. You have to go all the way back to 2008. I was doing a study abroad program in Zambia when I was in college, and we were visiting a hospital, and we got to talk to the doctor that ran the whole hospital. And he had grown up there at that hospital. His father had started the hospital, and then he had gone off to medical school and then come back to run the hospital himself. And he was describing a problem that he had. And this problem just really rocked my world and really set the trajectory for, the rest of my life after that. He said, as a doctor, he was spending 12 hours every day treating patients, and he just couldn't get his head above the water. There was just so much need. And so one day he decided, I'm going to take one day out of the hospital each week, and I'm going to educate people. I'm going to train leaders. I'm going to create teams who can go out into these villages and can actually help communities to learn, good, healthy habits and basic, first aid and all these kind of things. He said, I'm going to start training leaders, equipping leaders. And he said, through that, over the next few years, they saw the patients in the hospital, the number of patients dramatically decrease.
Wow.
Because he took a step out of the chaos and out of the front lines to say, I'm going to raise up leaders. I'm going to educate people. And so after having that interaction, that's when I really knew, hey, that's what I want to be about, is building leaders, because it's through building up leaders that you can really have a massive impact and alter the course of communities.
That's so powerful. I think there's this pivotal moment of maturity with any leader where we come to realize that working smarter is often more effective than working harder. Like, I can't solve systematic problems without a system. And so I am not the solution to all the problems in the world. So you saw a physician. Okay, how in the world? Well, I was just over in Zambia and met this doctor. That's a life-changing thing in itself. I've been able to travel all over Africa. Walk me through some of your career highlights. How did you get to Zambia? And then from Zambia, how did you end up getting to Growability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as I said, I went to Zambia when I was in college, and I actually studied missions. I was going to be a missionary. So I wanted to travel abroad. I wanted to train leaders and help make disciples and plant churches. And so after college, my wife and we moved to Tanzania, to Dar es Salaam in East Africa. There, I was really blessed to get to work alongside some really incredible leaders there. I was fully in ministry and had not really done a lot of business or even been interested in business that much. But then when I was working alongside these Tanzanian leaders, they had literally planted hundreds of churches. And so then they turn to us and say, hey, God has really blessed us, and we've been able to plant lots of churches and things. But what we really need help with is we need help creating and sustaining businesses so that these guys that are working out in the middle of nowhere, that are struggling to feed their family, so that they can support themselves and do this incredible work that we're trying to do. And when I heard that, I just thought, wow, that is an amazing opportunity. It's an incredible need. And so we began to build a program in partnership with other organizations who had expertise in those things. And we actually started a small business training program there in Tanzania. And it was amazing to see these guys that are incredible leaders having a huge impact, but saying, hey, this is a need that we have. When we left Tanzania in 2021, I decided to start my own business and really enjoyed that. And it was in that season, after we returned from Tanzania, that I got connected to you, Joshua, and to Growability. And we've just been rocking and rolling since then.
One of the things that really stood out to me as I traveled all over the world was that leaders in the developing world, in areas where poverty is rampant, they don't really want a handout. They're not looking for you to come and just give me something to get me through today. They want a hand up. They want to be able to have access to the same tools, the same training. If you can help me build a business so that I can pay my bills and I can feed my family, that's so much more valuable than just give me food for today, because then you're going to go away.
Yeah.
I think we get this idea that giving people a hand out is enough to really fight poverty. But giving people a handout is never enough to fight poverty.
No.
The old adage, you give somebody a fish and they eat a meal, but you teach them how to fish and they eat for a lifetime. Well, businesses are what fuel economies in any city. It's not just like,
right.
we can fuel everything by getting resources from another city. No, every city where people are needs to have the tools and training to develop. And I love that that was like, you're like, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a missionary. And they're like, that's great. We love you missionaries coming. That's so awesome. Can you help us with our businesses?
Yeah, exactly.
So what then? Okay, so you come back from Tanzania. What specifically interested you about Growability?
Yeah. When I was in Tanzania, again, I'm just on this path about I want to become a great leader. I want to learn how to develop great leaders. Like, this is what God is just really wiring me to do, what I want to do. I don't know what all this looks like right now. And so naturally, when you don't know what to do, you start a master's program, right? Like, you just feel like I got to get more educated on this. Yeah. So I started a master's degree in leadership. And it's through that process that I got introduced to this idea of, hey, having a personal mission statement, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for you personally, what is it that you're being called to do? What's that mission that God has designed you, to pursue in your life, regardless of what your occupation is at the moment? What's that deeper core purpose for which you exist? So I started, contemplating that and drafting that and writing through that. And at that time, the way that I articulated my personal mission statement was that my purpose was to encourage and equip leaders to expand the kingdom of God. And, that was in the most simple form how I could articulate this path. And so then, you and I sit down to coffee and you start telling me about Growability and how Growability's mission is to equip hundreds of leaders all throughout the world to bring flourishing to their communities. And it's just like, wow, that's
thousands
exactly what
of
I'm
leaders,
supposed to
not
be doing.
hundreds of leaders.
Thousands.
Equip thousands to reach millions. Hey, come on now.
In hundreds of countries. There we go.
In hundreds of countries. That's exactly right.
Yeah. That's where I was going with that. But when I heard that, it's just like, man, that's exactly the path that I'm on too. So I want to jump on this with you guys because that's exactly where I'm going. So the first thing I think is just the mission and the vision of the organization is something that resonates really deeply with me. And then the second is the quality of the tools. Even all throughout my master's studies and everything, the Growability tools are more powerful and more, simple than anything that I've come across in my studies. And so when you pair like that mission of the organization with these incredibly powerful tools, it's just like, yeah, I have to use this. I mean, this is the best tool that I've found to really cultivate leaders and to build effective organizations.
I love that word equip that you said. It took me a long time to really understand, like, what does equipping actually mean? Like, what does it mean if I'm going to equip someone? And I realized that there's three necessary ingredients in equipping. One is teaching. So if I
Mm,
don't have foundational education, if I don't understand the way that things work, I can't move very far. Another is training. Training is like where I'm
hmm
working with somebody, I'm walking with them. There are certain things that you can't master without experience, and you can't master without a guide. And then there's tools. So, like you said, the Growability Toolkit. When we were putting the Growability Toolkit together as an equipping tool, some of those tools are fundamentally teaching, like these are the fundamentals. Some of them are really best understood when you do them together with somebody. Hey, let's do an assessment, let's look at this, let's draw
hmm
this out of you. And then they're all kind of tools, they're things that you can use. Leaders need equipping. Leaders need teaching, they need training, and they need tools. And so when we say we're going to equip thousands to reach millions, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about giving those teaching, training, and tools to those leaders. All right, so you got yourself a copy of the Growability Toolkit. You're like, here I go. I'm going to go and I'm going to be a growability coach. What are some of the unexpected challenges that you've faced in coaching in general? You might even share a failure or 16. I think as
Oh
coaches,
yeah,
like we don't have everything perfect. We just we keep
yeah,
trying. But what are some
yeah,
unexpected challenges that you found in coaching, and maybe how have you made some progress in overcoming those challenges?
yeah. That's really good. One unexpected challenge that I have faced has been motivating unmotivated clients.
Yeah, yep.
And what I mean by that is I just assumed that anybody who would pay for a coach or for a consultant to come into their organization would inherently be motivated and would immediately, take whatever it is that we're bringing to the table and try to implement it because clearly they've seen a need and they've brought somebody in to address this thing. And that's just not the case. I've had clients that just say, I hear what you're saying. I just don't want to do that. And it's like, wow, okay, okay. So that was a new experience for me that I had to learn how to navigate and realize that, okay, my job as a coach is not just to, drop these tools in a client's lap, but it is to really understand how can I connect with this client
Yeah.
and communicate this in such a way that resonates with them, where they understand it and see the impact and are willing to make the necessary changes to implement those things for the good of their organization.
Yeah, I've read a great book, one of my favorite books actually, on human behavior called The Advertising Effect. In that book, it says that all change, if a human is going to make a change, it has to be motivational. We're not going to do something if I don't have motivation to do it. And B, it has to be easy. If it's not easy, I'm not going to do it. So I quickly discovered working with clients like, whoa, I have to figure out what motivates people, which is why
Hmm
we started implementing the disc profile at the beginning of every single consultation, because I can learn some motivational tools simply by looking at the team of people that are there. If it's a D personality, they want to win. All right, what does winning look like? If it's an I personality, they want to have fun. If it's an S personality, they want to have balance. If it's a C personality, they want it to be reliable. They want that safety element. Finding what motivates somebody as a coach or consultant it's not just optional. It's critical. If we can't figure out what motivates our clients, we're not going to be effective as a coach, and they're not
Yeah.
going to actually change. So, what are some lessons that you apply now in your coaching that, as you were just jumping in, that maybe you weren't doing?
One thing that I've started doing now is making sure that we identify, hey guys, what are we seeking to accomplish today? And then I'm going to make sure that I direct the session to accomplish that so that
Yeah.
when the client walks away from that session, it's very tangible to say, wow, we got stuff done and we accomplished those goals that we set out to.
What are some of the rhythms, Jonathan, that you employ? Do you have some personal rhythms or things that you do that keep you sharp so that when you're going into these meetings, you feel like you have something to give?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there are three things. The first is just maintaining a daily habit of communion with the Lord is essential. I mean, for anyone as a follower of Jesus, but especially as a coach, to be receiving from the Lord so that you can be pouring out into the lives of others. The second would be continual learning. And so I love, reading books on leadership, listening to books on leadership when I'm in the car. And so just continuing to grow and learn, because that's another thing that I really enjoy with my clients is, suggesting books that they should be reading and things
Yeah.
that should be shaping their thinking. And that's provided a lot of good conversation. And, sometimes a book will hit differently than something a person says, or something will stand out to you in a book. Even though I've told the client something,
Yeah.
10 times, when they
Yeah.
read it in a book, they're like, oh yeah, maybe we should do that. And so continuing to learn. But then the last thing is maintaining or really cultivating community
Mm,
with others who will help me grow and stay
mm.
sharp. So our weekly meetings, Joshua, with our team, those have been times when we can get together and I can learn from other people what their experiences are, what their challenges are. And then when we hear things that that you're thinking, that you're learning, when I hear things that other people are learning and can bring to the table, that kind of community is really just essential, because the coach needs a coach. The
Yeah.
coach needs to be learning as well. And so to have that community of coaches around me has just been incredibly essential and life-giving.
I love it. What's fueling you the most? Like, what's feeding you the most right now? Like, where are you inspired in your current career?
Yeah, I am always inspired by these leaders, especially African leaders. I'm in communication with a lot of African leaders right now, leaders around the world who are just doing incredible work in very difficult places. I'm really inspired by those guys a lot, and just really am thankful for all the conversations that I get to have with them. This week, I'm being inspired by the Lord of the Rings that I'm listening to on audiobook as I drive around town. But I was sharing this with my wife the other day. I listen to business books, leadership books all the time, and those are really great. But diving back into a great story,
Yeah.
listening to the Lord of the Rings, I mean, it makes me want to be like a better person, and
Yeah.
wants me to it makes me want to dive into the adventure of life. Yeah, staying connected to great stories as well that just spark the imagination, and that's what brings so much joy and perspective to life as well. So those are
Wow.
a few things that I'm gaining
I love that. I love
inspiration
that.
from
I
right
love
now.
that. So, Jonathan, what advice would you give to somebody who has decided that they are going to be a coach, or they are thinking about being a coach? Like, give me some practical tips for coaching. What's one thing that you would share with somebody else who's a coach, or thinking about being a coach?
I think the first thing that I would say, try it out. Find one client, jump in and give it a try, because you may realize either, yeah, this is what I want to do, or no, this is not for me. So I would just say jump in and give it a try. The second thing, I would use the Growability Toolkit and start applying it to yourself and your own business. I apply the Growability Toolkit in my own coaching business and in other businesses that I run as well. And even, at my church, I was privileged to be able to implement the Growability Toolkit for my church, which has been really fun and a big blessing. So I would just say, start using the tools, start implementing them yourself, because then you'll actually have experience to be able to share with other people. Because of being very competent with the tools, the Growability operating system, you have a lot to bring to the table as a coach. And so I would say, jump in and give it a try, but then apply these tools to yourself, to your own business, so that you have that experience to share with others.
Don't quit your day job. Get your hands dirty. In your current career, what's your ideal target look like? What is an ideal
Hmm.
client for Jonathan Sims? Where can you do the most good? Who is going to love working with you? Who's a good
Yeah.
fit to have Jonathan coach them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my ideal client would be someone who is leading an organization that is in, what we would call a season of growth. We can work with startups, but at the same time, if you're just starting up, you have to really try a lot of things out and just see, is this even going to work? But really, our ideal client is someone who has a business established. It can be business, it can be nonprofit, it can be faith-based like a church, but something that is established that's really in a growth season, where you can say, hey, here's things we've been doing. We've seen some success, but we also have a lot of challenges. Things are very disorganized. We don't have a lot of systems. We're not sure that our vision is very clear, all these things. And that's really our ideal client, because we can come in and help you really clarify your vision. We can help you develop the systems for sales and marketing, for fundraising, all of those things, actually create a strategy and equip your managers and build teams and do those kind of things that a growing organization needs, but that a startup may not be there yet. And so we're great with growing organizations, even very mature organizations as well. And so I think that would be my ideal client, would be leaders of growing organizations.
In today's market and economy, why is coaching necessary? Why should people get coaches?
Oh man, that's a great question. People need coaches because there is a lot of information out there, but there's not a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
You can go on the internet and get hundreds of sound bites and video clips, from the latest guru, or little sound bites about leadership or whatnot. But wisdom, actually being able to apply all of the knowledge about running and growing an effective organization, applying it in a way that is holistic, that's systematic, that's going to actually impact every area of your organization. That's why leaders need coaches. Even though there's a lot of information and ideas about business and organizational leadership floating around, what a coach brings you is a holistic approach and a complete system for implementing all of those things in your organization with the right application, frequency, intensity, all of those things that are actually going to bring you results.
Is so true, and so important. What's next for you? What are you currently working on? What's a long-term goal that you're trying to achieve? Where do you want to go? How are you going to define success for Jonathan Sims?
That's really good. The way that I define success, I think of two words. I think of faithfulness and fruitfulness. And so at the end of the day, I want to be faithful to the things that God has put in front of me, the people that he's put in my life, which includes my family. It includes, my team that I'm working with. It includes my clients that are in front of me. I want to steward those relationships and those tasks that I've been given really well. And then the second thing is I want to be able to see good fruit through the work that I've done. I think that's just really fundamental to what we've been created to do. For me, success looks like bearing really good fruit in the lives of others through the coaching that we've done.
I love it. Jonathan Sims, what a delight to have you on the show today. You are a fantastic gift to me, and sometimes you drive me crazy by fixing all of the things that I think are ready, but they're not yet Jonathan Sims ready. So thank you for upgrading the toolkit and being a continual iron sharpening iron on our team. With that, we want to remind everybody that you are doing better than you think, and you have more potential than you know. We want to thank you for growing with Growability. As a reminder, you can get your own copy of the Growability Toolkit from growability.com. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels and share this episode with people that you really like. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.